alcoholic. And I won't hurt anybody's feelings, but I am in Tempe, Arizona, where the weather is about 80 degrees today. So I will send you love and warmth to the -27 and the -11 and all the other weather. But isn't it wonderful that we can practice these principles in all of our affairs, no matter what the weather is? And I just want to say thank you to the team, and Ali and Teresa, and I have been there from the very beginning. And when I came onto this meeting, I just felt this sense of peace and kinship and love. And I could tell that everybody was just so excited about life and the transformation that could take place by doing the work that we can choose to do or not choose to do, whichever the case might be. And I had to keep coming back. I had to keep coming back. And you know, so many of the people on this are like my brothers and my sisters. And I'm sure that it would have been fine, but 2020 was a lot easier, you know, because they shut down our meetings, and I had Zoom and I had this meeting, and I cherished it. I locked the doors and told everybody to leave me alone. I'm out. I'm over and out. I wanted to also thank my girls. I've got ladies that have made and changed their schedules, that have jumped on to support me, and that is always feels really good. And Teresa, I've never heard you so quiet, baby. So I'll be glad when you're out of the garage. But I want to read this once again, because I'll tell you a little story about it. There is a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit, but when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. And I can remember when I came into the room in 1983, the first year, we did a big book study for 45 minutes, a quick 10-minute break, and a 12 and 12 study for 45 minutes or hours. And our meetings were 2 hours, a little over 2 hours in Oklahoma, and that's where I got sober. And when we were studying this step and reading it in the 12 and 12, I was listening to it, and I actually got chill bumps all over me. And I thought, wow, how could that be? How could anybody have an unshakable foundation for life? Because I couldn't relate to that. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea how to get there. And I was confused, and I was eager. I was eager. When I hit the door at 83, I'm telling you what, it was like hot water in a tea bag. I could not slow down. I could not do enough for Alcoholics Anonymous. I had found my family and my home, just like I have with this meeting. I loved everything about it. When I hit that place, I'm telling you what, I never wanted to leave. I cleaned ashtrays. That's when we got to smoke in the churches even. And I didn't even care that my hands stunk. You know, I got to greet, I got to be part of, I got to be very, very busy in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because for the first time in my life, I felt like I had belonged someplace. I belonged there. And for the first time in my life, I saw hope. I saw love. And I saw a different way that I could live. Few things about me, because, you know, we don't get that first meeting just rocking and rolling. Yeah, baby, I want to go to AA. I mean, you know, I never did think of that. I came from a long line of alcoholics. We always laughed, said we had a PhD in the Davis family, for alcoholism. My father died of alcoholism, my grandfather died of alcoholism, and his father died of alcoholism. And it didn't even occur to me that it might hit me. It never even occurred to me. But what did happen was when I was young, by the time I was 12 years old, I came from abuse. I came from verbal abuse, sexually assaulted from the ages of 8 to 12. And I always share this with just absolutely release. And I used to not be able to because I would just break down, you know. And that's not why I'm an alcoholic. And as you'll see, is that I used that for a long time. And I'm an alcoholic because I suffer from a disease, which I will continue to call an illness. And it's twofold. And actually, the twofold is mental and physical. My mental obsession will still take me out today. And when I put that in my body, I have a physical allergy. And both of those things are symptoms. And it's a symptom of a spiritual malady. I had no spiritual upbringing at all. I think I graced the church twice on Easter. I was the oldest of 6 children. And man, I had a resentment on that one. You know, if it weren't for me, those kids wouldn't have been raised. And my mother said that too. And so, you know, I just was an angry, broken, full of self-pity. And that was the reason all these bad things were happening to me. But I will share with you, when I found alcohol at 15 years old, it was my relief. You know, I got relief from that. I could breathe. I didn't feel quite as broken. And at 15, that long ago, it wasn't really very easily accessible. But the mental obsession I could see after I had come into the program, because if I wasn't drinking, I was getting over a drunk, or I was planning the next one. And if that meant that I had to stand on the corner in 1968 to panhandle, that's something that would not, like, yeah, let's do it. I would lie, I would cheat, I would steal to get the money, to be able to get some relief. And then during that time, these wonderful, wonderful habits started happening for me that served me well as well. My self-centeredness. These worked for me for quite some time. My self-pity, my anger, how I dealt with life. You know, I look back on my life and I have no regrets. When it says that in the 9 step promises, when I would read it, I'd say that's going to be okay for y'all, but it's not going to work for me. It's just not going to work. And I have no regrets to my life. I would be very hesitant to change one single thing that has happened to me, because I'm afraid I might not be the person I am today. And I can tell you this with every fiber of my being. I love who I am today. I love the transformation that this program has allowed me. Now, it hadn't been easy. And I love these women that I talk with, and they say, oh, I just can't do it. It's too painful. It's just painful. And it does say that. If we are painstakingly, you know, it is painful. It's painful to look at who I was. It was painful to admit the things that I did. It was painful, but I still have yet to die over pain, and have always grown through those times. Just a little bit, you know, I got out of that town, Enid, Oklahoma. That was everything that happened to me as a child. I lived in Enid, Oklahoma, where there was about 5,000 people and 3 stoplights. And everything about my life was that was why if I could just get out of town, if I could just do this, if I could just do that, I would be better. I would feel better. I wouldn't be broken. I would feel worthy. All the things, just the critics in my head just would not stop ever. There was never any peace. The first time, there were several, but the first times I tried to commit suicide, I was 12 years old. And it never stopped. It never stopped. And I look at the pain and the misery that I put my mother through and not giving one thought to that at all. I got as far away from that family because I hated my mother, because I didn't feel like she had protected me. I didn't feel like she loved me. And that was just my own thinking. She did the very, very best she could. And she passed 5 years ago, and we had 12 years of just love and joy and talking with each other. I was able to hold her hand as she left this earth. And it was the most amazing experience. And that's because of the 12 steps of this program, that I was able to make amends. I was able to clean up things that I had done. Even though she'd go, "Oh, Susie, that's okay. It's all right. I love you." And she did. She loved me unconditionally. But I don't think any mother wants to walk into a room and find her child passed out with a needle in her arm and unconscious. The things that I did were just unbelievable. So I had this idea that if I was able to get married, get an education, and settle down, that would stop my drinking or slow it down. Because by now I'm in my early 20s and I am rocking and rolling. And I loved my character defects. I had said it before, and I mean it. They were delicious. They served me well. The self-pity, the self-centeredness. I mean, if I wasn't going to be angry at things, how was I going to get things I wanted? When you told me I had to change everything about myself, I said, "Are you kidding me right now? No, there might be a few things that I'll do, but I'm not going to do it all. Come on, come on." So I did. I found that husband. And well, actually, he wasn't my first. I don't count the first one because, just like when you buy a home, it's a starter home. Well, this first marriage was a starter marriage. And, I don't know that it even lasted maybe 9-10 months. I don't know. Don't remember. Don't care. So I really call that my starter marriage. But when I went on the hunt, and believe me, I went on the hunt to find a man that would settle me down and provide the life that I so desired. And the thing I always like to say about desires is that the desires that we have are God-given. The desire for relationships, to be loved, financially stable. These are God-given desires, but when they become demands, they are my character defects. And I'm telling you what, there was no desire that wasn't a demand. I want what I want when I want it, and I want it right now. You're going too slow. And I was a little much for most people to handle. But this guy called me one night, and he said, "I'm in jail. Will you get me out?" And I said, "That's him. That's him." I mean, he could call anybody in the world, and he called me to get him out of jail. That's the guy. This is the guy that's going to give me stability. Hair to the middle of his back, an old hippie. I was an old hippie. What could you do? I mean, it was magic. And I get him out of jail, and we go to the Safeway to get his VA check. He had a lot of money. He got his VA check, and we went there, and I looked down the aisle, and there he comes, all that hair, and he's got a case of beer in one arm, and I'm getting some chips or something, and he hits the ground on one knee in the aisle, at the Safeway and asked me to marry him. And I said, boom, that's it. I got it. I got it. Just like Bill said, I had arrived. Is that insane thinking? And I went ahead and got that education and was married to this man. Now, the first thing that I should have recognized was that 5 days after we got married, the house burned down to the ground, and a drunk had passed out in our living room with a cigarette, and it caught a fire and the whole house burned down. That's another story. Insanity, for sure. We moved up to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I realized that things were getting too bad. So what do you do when they're too bad? I had a child. A little girl a baby would settle me down. And I did that, and it didn't settle me down, and it got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. And that man was getting ready to take that baby away from me. And in March 23rd, 1983, I said, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. And I went into treatment, very small treatment in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They had just really started that early. And that's when I fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous. I worked these steps. I didn't miss a meeting. I dragged that little girl everywhere with me. I got a divorce after 10 years to that man, and the women in AA held my hand, walked me through it, and showed me how to pray. They showed me how to meditate. I had the best of the best of the best of AA. Tulsa, Oklahoma, I got to be with the first Big Book Comes Alive with Charlie Parmalee, Joe McCoy, and Charlie Parmalee. Joe McQuaney, and I had the best of the best of the best. If we want the best that Alcoholics Anonymous can offer, we can have it. But God is not going to do for me what I can do for myself. And, I was sitting in a conference one morning. It was a Sunday morning. I'd been divorced for about a year. And I hadn't gotten divorced, was trying to get the divorce. And there was this guy standing up there, and he was behind the podium. There he was in a 3-piece suit, and he was smooth talking. And all he talked about was God and AA. And I punched my sponsor and I said, I'm going to marry that guy. And she said, well, I'll remind you that you are married. And he is too. And I wasn't to meet that man for 2 more years. And we were on a conference. And I walked in, and there he was, and there I was. And I'm telling you, that was the first time that I thought, well, I'm willing to go to any length to get this guy. And we just had a romance of Alcoholics Anonymous and just had a ball. We went everywhere. We talked together. He helped raise Dylan. Dylan is his daughter. And I've been with that man 35 years. And it says self-knowledge will avail us nothing. He's 13 years sober and I'm 10 years sober. And we have had everything that we have ever dreamed of. And we got a little too busy to give back what was so freely given to us. And the first thing that went was self-evaluation. Second thing that went was prayer. Why meditate? Why work with these women? They're not doing anything I'm telling them to do anyway. If they'd do what I tell them, they'd be better. A little bit of resentment came in, not working a 10-step. A little bit of anger came in. Self-righteousness, pride, envy, resentment, comparison. I can only live in the problem or the solution. There's not a third option for me. And we're rolling down the road, and I say to Rick, what do you think about drinking tonight? We'd never talked about it. That's how fast, boom. That's how I hadn't thought about it. Boom. He says, I think that's a good idea. Well, I thought it would be a little harder sell than that because he was 13 years sober, but little did I know he was already on his way. Because if I am not doing the things that are required of me on a daily basis, that's what's going to happen. And I don't even have the words nor the time to tell you what the next 7 years involved. This disease is so progressive that within 3 weeks, I was back in the dope house and drinking at 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning. We lost everything. Our daughter she went to school in Arkansas so she could go for a swim team, which was a good thing. And I don't like to admit it, but I was so grateful she was gone because I could drink the way I wanted to drink. And Rick and I it's the grace of God we survived. I bought a gun because he needed to go, and he threw butcher knives at me. Now, we laugh about it today, but it was tragic. It was tragic. Taking each other's stuff, lying, cheating, stealing, infidelities, everything. So when he came back in November of 2000, we were separated and I had my own place. And one night he's 6 months more sober. One night I go over there and he won't let me in the house. And this is where things started turning around for me. He said, no, I'm not letting you in. I'm getting sober again. Because we used to say to each other, when will we go back to AA? Oh, when it gets bad enough. Well, how's bad got to be so bad? What bad is? I mean, how bad does it have to be? So when I came back in March of 23rd, which I've celebrated 20 years this past March, I'm telling you what, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But I knew what not to do. I can sit here and tell you why I went back out. I did not do the last 3 steps. I did 1 to 9 and lived on the energy and the people and the relationships in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did not do the 3 words that this is my deal, is that I'm really it was brought to me and it's just marinating in me, is that continue, improve, and practice. Those last 3 steps embody all of the steps to me. If I continue, and if I improve, and if I practice, I have a shot. And my shot is that I want to wake up in the morning and I want to feel like a newcomer. I want to feel like this is the first day that I get to do this thing. It's not, oh my God, I got to do prayer meditation. Oh my God, I got to look at myself again. How many times do I got to look at myself? I get to. I mean, unshakable foundation. When I put those, I love the word because it's just, it's together. All 3 of them are unshakable foundation for life. I got it. I got it for today. And what I do tomorrow, I got to do more, because what I did today will not provide me for tomorrow. What I ate for breakfast, I'll have to eat something else for breakfast tomorrow. It's the same way with my spiritual life. This discipline that God has so generously just said, here, Suzanne, please come closer. Come closer to me, sweetheart. Come closer. There's more. There's more. And I just keep doing more. And this daughter, when we went back out and Rick came back in, she said, you are not, I called her on her birthday. He came in November the 9th. Her birthday was the 8th. She says, I hate you. I won't even repeat everything she said. I don't want you in my life. You're not my mother. I want nothing to do with you ever in my life, ever. And I was told by my sponsor, it's none of your business. Step back, let her do what she needs to do, and you take care of yourself. And that's what I did. And I did it year after year after year. And it wasn't until about 10 years that she felt like she could trust me. I'm surprised she did it that soon. Unshakable foundation for life. God's miracles on a daily basis. We get a phone call one day and they tell us they're moving to Phoenix, Arizona. And they're bringing their 2 children. And they bought us car seats. I used to put her in a car drunk. She's 13, 14, 15. She remembers those days when I went back out. And it confused her. We talked about it at Thanksgiving. She said, I was so confused, Mom, because you said you were an alcoholic and I was in those rooms for 10 years. We really confused her. She ended up homeless, living in her car because we used the money, monthly money, to buy drugs and alcohol. And that child has forgiven me. And those kids come over to our house every Friday night and spend the weekend. And they've lived here now for 3 years. I was 7 years sober and we moved out here because Rick's mom was having a terrible time. An unshakable foundation because of self-evaluation, prayer, and meditation. And we moved straight out here to be with his mother. And he spent the next 11 years, he didn't work for 5, but the next 11 years walking her home. And during that time, I was 7 years sober, and I was diagnosed with a very serious breast cancer, stage 3, triple negative, unshakable foundation for life, unshakable. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I didn't deal with fear, that I didn't know what was going to happen. Of course, I'm a human being. And my sponsor would always say, Phyllis McCoy is my sponsor, and she'd say, Suzanne, you're human. But I don't grasp onto those emotions anymore and go down the rabbit hole. You know, I love it. I let these feelings, even when in meditation, these thoughts, or when I get feelings, you know, I just let them come. They're just visitors. As long as I don't let them unpack and move in, I'm okay. Because in meditation, I can't stop what's coming through here. You know, and the wonderful thing about the meditation piece of this entire thing is that it's progressive. The more you do it, the more I want to do it. The more I do it, the better the results are. The more I continue to look at myself. Are you kidding me? I can be the most selfish woman, but I can figure it out like that because God is right there. God is all powerful. God is all loving. God is life. And I used to think that I needed to do something so God would come in. And I have found that God is here within me. And I have to make that crack in my heart and in my soul so that spirit of God can come out and I can be the woman that God wants me to be. You know, Rick always says there's the Rick that Rick created and there's the Rick that God created. And that's the same way with me. You know, I'm trying to get back to the woman that God created. And I can only do that with self-examination, prayer and meditation. And my meditation is like, you know, I look and all of you, you'll probably have to shut me down when it's time to go because I kind of lost track of time. I promise I'll stop. Maybe. I'm just kidding. Okay. this meditation thing, this searching for God, you have to live your life to understand it backwards, right? Well, in my 20s, before I really went off the rails, so to speak, I followed Paramahansa Yogananda. I mean, he was the man, and I did the self-realization fellowship out of LA, and I would get my lessons, but there was this disease that I had, and so it wasn't that I've always been searching, but I didn't realize I was searching for God. I thought it was prestige and things, money, houses, cars, people. And then, that someone said, hey, let's go to Sufism. I said, oh my God, that sounds awesome. I can dance my way to God. And we loaded up in that car and we went through the western part of the United States, going to ashrams. It was amazing. And every single time, it would feel like I would almost get there. And then I'd take a drink or I'd take a drug, and I would set up that obsession to use again, So I look back on my life, I was just searching the wrong things. And now I know what I want. And now I know who I am. And now I know how to keep the things that are important to me, which are relationships and working with others. And God is all powerful, all knowing. He directs me and he guides me on a daily basis. And of course, in the beginning, the morning and night, that was it. That's all you got. But not now. The timing, if I've been able to get to a place a little bit more, is that I'm aware that the only time I have is this very moment right now with you all. This is my time that I get to be honest and have integrity and to be open and try to be an open channel for God, as it talks about in our literature. It's the only time I have. And as long as I can stay in that moment and listen to my heart, listen to other people, not always trying to figure out what am I going to say after they quit talking, really listening. And these spiritual disciplines, like it says in the big book, that we can go to other spiritual things. I study other spiritual writers. And the thing about it is every single one of them says the same thing. There's just a little bit of a variation, but it's all the same thing. Deny self. Anytime that I get off the beam or sideways or up and down or thinking this or thinking that, I'm not denying self. I'm letting something, someone, a circumstances or a condition to pull me off of what my vision is. I did come out of that cancer and I danced through that cancer, a cancer that they thought was pretty iffy if I was going to get on the other side. And I celebrated 12 years in remission. And that's a miracle in itself. And it says, and I've used this for these 20 years, I will restore your health and I will heal your wounds. And I used to think it was just my health here and wounds that would be open. But restore my health means spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, emotional sobriety. And I will heal your wounds. It's just not where I've been cut or radiation or chemo or surgeries. wounds are wounds that go way, way back, way back. And all my wounds have been healed. I tell you, there isn't anything that's more exciting to me than Alcoholics Anonymous. It has given me a life and an understanding of myself and others and God like nobody's business. You know, I hope, I pray that I can only do this one day at a time. Because if I can, then I can stay the way I am right now. And I'm telling you what, I have a zest for living. I love my life. I love people. I love the sunsets and the sunrise. I love the pain that I have to walk through. I just am walking through a very serious surgery. And you know what? I am dancing through it too. But let me tell you, in the beginning, it was very, very dark. You know, let me tell you, there have been very, very dark times in this 20 years. But it's an unshakable foundation that I stand on. It's a rock. It's not shifting sands any longer. I've buried my mother. Rick and I buried his mother. A 31-year-old niece died of an aneurysm, no alcoholism, no drug addiction, perfect little girl, and she died. I've buried so many people in the program, so many people that I've been able to share my health challenges with. I've been able to hold their hands and walk through it. And it says in all of our literature, practice the 12-step, practice these principles in all of our affairs. I don't do it just in AA. Let me tell you, I can be spot on in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's how do I treat people outside of the rooms? How do I treat the people in the restaurants, in the grocery stores, you know, when I'm in a hurry and I need to do, you know, in the traffic. I've even quit flipping people off in the traffic, and I never thought that that would happen because that was something I really thoroughly enjoyed doing. You know, they can have a piece of my mind. And instead, I bless them. You know, the God within me acknowledges the God within you. Now, I wish I was spot on with all of this all the time. I'm not. But I'm very quick to see where I have fallen short because of self-evaluation, because of the 10th step. That 10th step is just, I love it because when it says in the 10th step, I thought I was going to be white as snow. And that all these character defects were going to be removed from me, and I was going to be rocking and rolling because that's what I do. I love to rock and roll. I wasn't going to have to deal with any of it, selfishness, self-centered, self-pity, any of it. Well, it doesn't say that in the book. In step 10, it says when. And it was pointed out to me, Suzanne, they're going to crop up all of the time when they crop up. So my steps 1 through 9 has built this solid foundation that I can walk through. And 10, 11, and 12 are my growth steps that I get to do on a daily basis. And I do on a daily basis. I can say that honestly, that I do. The women I get to work with are just absolutely my lifeline that I get to, they think I'm helping them. No, they're helping me. They're helping me to continue to look at myself. And when I get all sassy thinking, well, they need to be doing something different, I'm reminded that their journey is between them and God. I'm just a channel of this beautiful program called Alcoholics Anonymous that gives us a chance to live a life that's full of love, compassion, understanding, and a hope that will carry me through many, many, many lifetimes. And I could not have been more pleased that you asked me to speak, Ali. I was like, oh no, oh dear. But thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you, team, Mickey, Kuna, Vicky, and Calvin, the newest member of the team, and the birthday boy. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me share tonight.